Okay, so we're going to try that ball tutorial again. Starting off with a brand new document, go to File, New, and just make sure you choose ActionScript 3.0. And let's go ahead and save it in case you don't finish today. And we're going to save this as ball bounce. Alright, first thing you're going to do is create a circle. Use a black stroke and choose any fill color that you would like. And then we'll go ahead and create it right here in the middle. And hold down Shift while you do that so that you can keep it proportional. Just remember that whenever you do decide to move it or select it, you do have to have the whole thing selected or it will not work. You'll end up with things like this. So just double click on it or drag a box around it. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a symbol. And a symbol allows us to create an animation within an animation. So let's say that we wanted to eventually get this to go from here to here. That's easy. But let's say we also wanted it to bounce up and down. Well, then we're going to combine two animations, one that goes from left to right and one that goes up and down. And then we're going to have even a third thing. We're going to actually have it have a little bit of a spin. So in order to do that, we're going to need to create some symbols. So let's go ahead before we do that and just put a little bit of a line on it to give us a reference point for our spin. So I'm just going to do a black line with the paintbrush right about there. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something along those lines. And this is all done on one layer because it's going to be easier for this project, but usually you're going to do multiple layers. And I'll just name this layer ball, and I just had to double click on it in order to do that. Okay, so if you're not here yet, just pause it and get caught up. Alright, so now select your ball, and you're going to create a symbol from the ball by hitting either F8, or up here at the top you can go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, and we're going to call this one Bounce. Okay, now double click, and you now should be within the bounce symbol. You're no longer in your scene. So again, this is the scene, this is like their final product, and this is a bounce. This is one of the animations within our scene, which hopefully you'll understand by the end of this tutorial. So we're going to make this one go up and down, but before we do that, we're actually going to have one other symbol within the bounce. It's called a nested symbol because it's within a symbol. So make sure it's highlighted and selected, and let's do a Modify, Convert to Symbol again, or just an F8. And we're going to call this one Spin. So we'll actually have two separate animations. Okay, now double click on it again, and you should be in the Spin symbol. So it should say Scene 1 Bounce Spin. If it's not, you need to back up and try that over again, or raise your hand and ask me for some help. Alright, so let's get it to spin. To do this, I'm going to show you guys how to use the skeleton, the bone tool, and with our objects selected, I think you have to have it selected first. We're going to put that right in the center of our object as close as possible. Click and drag to the edge. Now this is pretty simple because it's just a ball that's going to spin. But what we can basically do now is get back onto the selection tool, and you can now spin this object just like that. It might be a little wobbly because you didn't quite get the exact center, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. But go back, Control Z to so that it's back where it was. And we'll have our spin take about 20 frames to get a full rotation. So 5 frames into it, let's insert a pose. And clicking on this, I'm going to take that about 45 degrees to about here. Now let's go 10 more frames in. Let's insert another pose. And click on it, and then let's go to about here. 15 degrees. Insert a pose. Let's go to about here. And then back on 20, we should be pretty close to where we started. Right about there. And you want to make sure that you didn't spin past your starting point, because otherwise it won't look right. It should be, ideally it should be right before your starting point on frame 20. So I'll just go a little bit more that way. Let's take a look one more time. Frame 1, frame 20. That should be perfect. So as you can see, it's going to go like that, and it'll roll. Alright, now that we're done with that, let's get out of our spin animation. Let's get into our bounce animation. And so, if we were to just go up to frame, let's say 20 right now, and just say insert frame. You don't have to do this, but you'll notice it's already animated, and that's because it has an animation within this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to frame 5, and we're going to go ahead and insert a keyframe. And we're going to move it up a little bit. And I'm going to hold down shift so that it goes straight up. Then we're going to go to frame 10, and we're going to insert another keyframe, and we're going to put it back down to the original position. You'll notice though that you don't know where that was, so we want to turn our onion skins on just by clicking here. Your onion skin may have to be dragged back a little bit so you can see where you were before, and there it is. So now I'm just going to hold down shift with the mouse and stick it right back to where we were at the beginning. And now we'll have an animation that looks like that. Right now this is not what we want because it only goes from top to bottom. So we want to fill in these little spots. So we're just going to right click and go create classic tween. The same thing with this one, create classic tween, and now it should be a smooth animated ball like that. Okay, now let's get back into scene 1. So, and again, if you need to go back to those other ones, you can just double click to get within to your symbols. So I'm going back to scene 1, and if we would just click on frames, let's say 60, which is 2 seconds in, if I'm going about 2 seconds, I'll insert a frame. And if you insert a frame, it's going to show you where we're at right now. And you'll notice there's a little bit of a problem. The ball doesn't spin all the way. And the reason for that is because in this animation we only use 10 frames. In this one we use 20. So to be consistent, we want to make sure that we want to make sure that we're using 10. So I'm going to go back to bounce. I mean 20. And we go up down. We're going to have to go up down again. So I'll go to frame 15 and insert a keyframe. Let's go straight up. And let me just see my onion skin so I know where we were before. Let's see, how high did I go? About right there. That's perfect. And then frame 20, right back down. Insert keyframe, and then just go back down to the bottom. And my onion skins are showing me where that is. I can turn my onion skin off now. And don't forget to create those classic tweens to fill in all those empty spaces. Otherwise, it'll just go up, down, instead of going everywhere in between. Okay, now let's go back to our scene 1, and let's watch what we're at right now. Is that gonna just crash? There we go. That's good. So we have a full spin and a little bounce. And if your bounce is too fast, you can go in there and you can edit it. It's fine. But now let's get it to go across. So I'm going to delete all these frames. I just want, oops, not all of them. I gotta keep my first one. So let me just, highlight everything except for the first frame, and just, if I can. And I'm gonna just go remove frames. I just want the first frame. Okay. Now we're gonna create something called a motion tween. So click on create motion tween. And you can drag it out as far as you want. Let's say we want it to be 3 seconds long. And then you could have it be so it's going to roll over here. And then go back to, it automatically did everything else for you. Maybe we want frame 1 though to be over here. So I'll just go back to frame 1 and stick it there. And what's kind of cool about this is that if you were to move it somewhere along the line, it'll actually it'll move the rest of the paths for you. Another thing you can do is you can bend it, and so if you wanted your ball to do that, although I don't think that really look good since it's got a little bounce, so I'm gonna keep it straight. But let's actually start it off the stage so you can't even see it at the beginning. And now let's take a look what we got. Okay. So if you were able to do this, you just learned a lot of the skills that you're going to need to be able to do some more complex animations. So this is kind of just a start. And you can now spend the rest of the period doing a little fun animation like we did yesterday, where you're just drawing 1 frame at a time and inserting blank frames in between. Thanks. Bye.